are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, September 19th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the $ icon in the chat. This will help create a super chat. Any thoughts or comments you may want to see be put out on the live broadcast that I acknowledge. And it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day as we put out content for you guys each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We are going to preview tonight's game between the Jets and the Patriots. That kicks off Week 3 in the NFL. Then in the second part of the show, we will get into talking about Jordan Love returning to practice. We'll also talk about the Packers' win over the Colts with Malik Willis as the starting quarterback. So I'll get into all that after the start of the show here with the preview for tonight's game. Then we'll get into talking about the Steelers and their win over the Broncos. It seems like Justin Fields is going to start once again for them. The Steelers will be playing against the Chargers in their home opener, so we'll get into that. We'll talk about the Giants-Commanders game, the Commanders winning that game 21-18. And then in the final part of the show, I'll talk about all the 2-0 teams and just give you my thoughts on them, the surprises from that group and things like that. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about tonight's game between the Jets and the Patriots. So both teams are coming off of, the Patriots are coming off of a loss, but they were competitive in that game. It was an overtime game, loss to the Seahawks. And for the Jets, they picked up their first win of the season, taking down the Titans in that game. I think the score was 27-20. But yeah, so coming into this game, where these two teams are at right now, I'm still 24-17. That's my bad on the Jets-Titans game. But coming into this game, I'm still worried about the Jets defense. It still didn't look great against the Titans. And on top of that now, Jermaine Johnson, one of their edge rushers, he's out for the year with the torn Achilles. So, they're still looking for the pass rush. And on top of that, they're struggling against the run. And the Patriots have run the ball well in these first couple of games. And the Patriots have looked good these first two games. Now, not to say that, right now they're 1-1. They could very easily be 2-0. But, we'll see how it all shapes out at the end of the year. But yeah, they have run the ball very well these first two games. Last week against the Seahawks, they ran the ball for almost 200 yards, 185 yards in total. Antonio Gibson had 96 yards on the ground, and Ramondre Stevenson had 81 yards on the ground and a touchdown. And the Jets are a defense that has struggled against the run early on. So that's something that, I want to keep an eye on. Right now, they are 24th against the run in this young season. They are giving up an average of 155 yards per game in terms of rushing yards. And in terms of points allowed, they're 25th. Passing yards, they're 17th. The Patriots are 25th, so maybe Aaron Rodgers and this passing offense can continue to get it going, because it did look a little bit better against the Titans. I mean, it hasn't been bad. Rodgers has not played bad. Has he been great? No, but again, still trying to, get back into the swing of things, and against the Titans, it looked a little bit better. Completed some nice passes. Of course, the Breece Hall touchdown, that was nice to see. So, maybe this is a game tonight where it really gets going. The Patriots, because the Patriots are second against the run. They're only giving up an average of 58 rushing yards per game. Again, still a young season. Now they're going up against Breece Hall. And Braylon Allen looks like he's going to be a good player for them. He had 2 touchdowns in the game against the Titans. So we'll see how that goes. And the Patriots defense are 5th in points allowed. Although the Seahawks, did well against them in week 2. So, and then in terms of the offense, in terms of passing yards, the Patriots are 30th in passing yards per game. The Jets are 23rd. In terms of rushing yards per game, the Patriots are 4th in the NFL. The Jets are 26th. The Patriots are averaging 177.5 rushing yards per game. And then in terms of points per game, the Jets are 14th and the Patriots are 20th. So, yeah, for me, the Jets are favored by 6.5. I would take the points. I would definitely take the points in this game. I think this is going to be a very competitive game. But I do like the Jets to win. It's also their home opener. And that crowd is going to be going nuts. And it's going to be the do-over from last year, because, last year you had Aaron Rodgers coming out with the American flag on 9/11, and then everything went downhill after that. So this is the do-over here for the Jets home opener, and it's against a team that has tormented the Jets over the years. And I included the graphic from a couple of years ago when it was 3-3 for most of the game, and then the Patriots ran back a punt return with less than 20 seconds left in the game, and or around 20 seconds left in the game, and the Patriots won that game 10-3. So, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I expect Rodgers to continue to play well. He hasn't looked bad these first couple games. It's been nice to see him back out there, and some of the throws that he's made in these first 2 games, it shows that he's still got it. It might not be the Aaron Rodgers from 10 years ago, but he's still got it. And he's only going to get better. And also, my friend sent us a graphic, whether it was yesterday or 2 days ago, but it basically showed, like, it had the quarterbacks on like a line graph, and it was like, going from least pressured to most pressured. And yeah, so 2024 QB from clean pockets through week 2. And Aaron Rodgers is way out by himself. And then you got Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins a little bit behind him. But Aaron Rodgers has been getting protection, which is huge. Because that was one of my concerns going into last year. And, of course, what ended up happening, he ended up getting hurt. And, this offseason, the Jets really went out and tried to patch up this offensive line. And through these 2 games, it has paid off. Rodgers has been getting good protection, and that's what you need. Now, my concern is more so with the defense at this point, because this was supposed to be the strength of the team. And now it seems like Rodgers has to play hero ball. And, he's 40 years old. He needs a defense to back him up. So this defense has to get it going. But this is going to be a tough game. This is going to be a tough game. But I think the Jets are going to win, but it'll be close. I'm going to say the final score is Jets 23, Patriots 17. I'm going to say that's going to be the score. I've kind of been close with the scores, but that might be a little high, but I think we'll go with that. We're going to say 23-17, Jets get the win, and they improve to 2-1 on the season. But the Patriots, they're well coached. That defense is still good. And, Jacoby Brissett's a veteran. And, he hasn't been bad. He's done what he's supposed to do. The running game, that's really been the key for the Patriots so far, is their running game. That's what this offense has been run through these first two games. And they're going up against a defense that has struggled against the run. So that's really the thing you want to keep an eye on tonight is the Jets' run defense against this Patriots rushing attack. If the Jets are able to contain the run and make Jacoby Brissett throw the ball more, then they'll be in good shape. But, if you're letting Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson have their way with this defense, it's going to be a long night for the Jets. So, and the Jets are still not quite there yet with this team. Because I feel like once we get towards the middle of the season and Aaron Rodgers has really, gotten that rust out and the defense has figured it out, this can be a very good team. And you got the Patriots this week, which is not going to be an easy game, but it's not like, it's not like you're going up against an opponent like the 49ers in week 1. Then you got the Broncos the following week. These are important games to, get this team in a rhythm. Have the defense work things out. Get themselves, back to what they were last year. Even though they're missing pieces from last year. And like I said, Aaron Rodgers continues to dust that rust off. Because at some point, he's going to have a game where he throws for over 300 yards. That is going to happen. So, yeah, it should be an interesting game tonight. Like I said, I'm going to say the Jets win, Patriots cover. But, who knows? It's going to be a very competitive game. And I'm looking forward to it. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. How do you see it playing out? Really, the biggest thing is, can the Jets defense, stop the run? Because these first two games, they have not done that. And the Patriots are a very good running team. So this could be a problem for the Jets defense tonight. So we're going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Packers game on Sunday. They defeated the Colts 16-10 with Malik Willis as the starting quarterback. But we'll also talk about Jordan Love returning to practice, what his status is. Could he possibly play on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans? We will discuss all of that when we come back from our first break of the show. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to get into talking about the Packers, a couple things with them. Jordan Love returning to practice, as well as talking about the Packers' 16-10 victory over the Colts. So, Jordan Love, as of an hour ago, is in consideration for Week 3. He was a limited participant in Wednesday's practice, and he could have a chance to play against the Titans on Sunday, and this is according to Adam Schefter of ESPN. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays this week. One source tells Schefter it's definitely day by day. like Love said, and 50-50 at best right now. So, would I be surprised if he plays? No, but maybe the better thing is to maybe have him sit another week and then have him come back. But this is big news for the Packers because when that injury first happened, you thought the worst because Jordan Love was really writhing in pain. He didn't get up right away, and you thought the worst. You thought it was an ACL, and, that ended up not being the case. The Packers avoided a major catastrophe. Now, he still ended up missing a game, but the Packers ended up winning that game, which, is very good because, you don't want to start off the season 0-2. And, obviously, if Jordan Love was out for the year, then, it's like, hey, this is what we got to do. But with your star quarterback out, you want to be able to tread water. And it doesn't seem like the Packers are really going to have to do that because now they just got to win here. And, they're going up against the Titans team where if Jordan Love doesn't play, the Titans have not looked great offensively. So that's a game maybe they could steal, and then you're 2-1, and Jordan Love comes back, and then you pick up from there. So, but yeah, this is very encouraging news for the Packers, and it's either he's going to come back this week or he's going to be back next week. That would be my guess. I would lean more towards he comes back next week, although I would like to see him play this week, but you want to make sure that he's fully healthy. He might not be fully healthy, but he might be close to that. So, that injury will probably still be lingering a little bit, but maybe you want to wait another week and then bring him back, which I think the Packers play the Vikings the following week, so that's going to be a very interesting game if Love comes back. Yeah, so they'll be playing, and that'll be at home. Yeah, you look at the Packers' schedule. They just beat the Colts. Then they have the Titans, who haven't looked great offensively. Then you got the Vikings at home, but the Vikings are not going to be an easy out. They've been a surprise so far. Then they got the Rams, who have just been ravaged by injury, so they should be able to win that game. You got the Cardinals and the Texans at home. Those are going to be two tough games. So, but the good thing for the Packers is they are at home. So, but good news on that front. But I wanted to get into talking about the Packers-Colts game. That's one of the few games we really didn't get a chance to talk about. But the Packers really had a good game plan going into this game. They ran the ball 53 times in total. And they ran the ball for 261 rushing yards. Josh Jacobs had 151 yards on the ground. Malik Willis had 41 yards on the ground. Jaden Reed had 37 yards. Marshawn Lloyd, who I think was placed on IR. So, behind Josh Jacobs, the running back situation is thin, the depth chart. Emmanuel Wilson had 9, and Bo Melton had 8. Their leading receiver was Romeo Doubs. He had 3 receptions for 62 yards, no touchdowns. Dontavian Wicks had a touchdown in this game. This was actually Malik Willis' first passing touchdown. Wicks had 3 receptions for 26 yards. And the score, Tucker Kraft, 2 for 16. Jaden Reed, definitely different from week 1 when he had 3 touchdowns. Only 2 receptions for 9 yards. Luke Musgrave had 1 for 6. And Marshawn Lloyd had 1 for 3. Jacobs actually fumbled at the goal line, so he's still looking for his first Packers touchdown. But other than that, he had a very good game. The Packers had 3 interceptions in this game. Xavier McKinney had 1. Evan Williams had 1. And also Eric Wilson had 1 as well. They only had 1 sack in this game, and it was by Devontae Wyatt. And then as for the Colts, Anthony Richardson was not good in this game. He went 17 of 34, 240 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Now, one of them came at the end of the game when he was trying to throw up a Hail Mary, so you kind of throw that one away, but still, he threw 3 interceptions. Jonathan Taylor only had 12 carries in this game for 103 yards. You'd like to see him get the ball more, but that wasn't the case. The Colts were down most of this game, but the game was never really out of reach. They were only down 10-0 at the half, and then the Packers only kicked 2 field goals in the second half. So, they had an opportunity to, still come back, but, they didn't really lean on that running game as much as you would have liked to have seen. Alec Pierce was their leading receiver, 5 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor had 2 receptions for 32 yards. Adonai Mitchell had 1 for 30. Moelle Cox had 1 for 22. Michael Pittman's gotten off to a slow start. In total, he's got 7 receptions for 52 yards so far. So you'd also like to see him get the ball a little bit more, but not a good game for the Colts. Not a good game for the Colts. So Laiatu Latu, their first-round draft choice, was the guy that recovered the Jacobs fumble. Anthony Richardson fumbled twice in this game, but didn't lose him. Same thing with Jonathan Taylor. He fumbled once. No sacks in this game from the Colts defense. And DeForest Buckner got hurt in this game, so we'll keep an eye on what his status is for the game on Sunday when they take on the Bears, an offensive line that's not great. So, yeah, the Colts defense has been disappointing so far in these 2 games. That was a defense that people looked at as being underrated. I mean, they did only give up 16 points, but no sacks in the game. But yeah, credit to the Packers. You know, they really had a game plan and they stuck to it. You know, they ran the ball and, you know, it worked. You know, Josh Jacobs had a good game. They really leaned upon him. He's dealing with a little bit of a back issue right now, but it doesn't seem like it's too big of a concern. But once they get Jordan Love back, I mean, we saw it a little bit in the game in Brazil, but it was still a messy game. I mean, this team is going to be very good this year. They're well coached. I give Matt LaFleur a lot of credit. You know, I've been critical of him in years past, and I've mentioned this on the show before, but he's a good head coach. He is a good head coach. And, you know, if they got to go one more week without Jordan Love, so be it. I mean, if they're 1-2, it's not a big deal. But, I mean, 2-1, you would love that, having Jordan Love step back in if this team, you know, has a winning record. But, you know, 1-2 is not the worst thing in the world. And the Packers, look at how they struggled in the middle of the season last year, and they rattled off a bunch of wins and got into the playoffs. So, you know, even if Jordan Love missed an extended period of time, you know, and if the Packers somehow found their way to, you know, like 4-6, you know, they could still make a run. But Jordan Love is going to be back sooner than that, and, you know, at worst they could be 1-2, or maybe he does play on Sunday. We'll have to see. But credit to Malik Willis. You know, the Titans, they, you know, got rid of him. The Packers, they took him in as a backup quarterback because that was, you know, something that they needed to address before the season started. And, you know, when he came in on that Hail Mary, he got sacked. And, you know, many people were like, oh, he's getting the start on Sunday. You know, the Packers got no chance. They're not going to win. Because, you know, the games that he started for the Titans, he wasn't very good. But, you know, now he goes into a situation in Green Bay, different system, and he did what he was supposed to do. And, you know, the Packers were comfortable that whole game. They had the lead. So he really wasn't asked to do much. You know, they really put an emphasis on running the football, that was a great game plan. You know, and on that Dontavian Wicks touchdown, I mean, he really threaded the needle because that could have been intercepted. But, you know, congratulations to him. I think that was his first actual win, if I'm not mistaken. I know that was his first touchdown pass when he connected with Wicks early on in the game. So, yeah, congratulations to Malik Willis on getting the win. And, yeah, I mean, he didn't look bad. I mean, but he wasn't asked to do much. So, but that just goes to show you, you know, the Packers are going to be a good team this year. And even without Jordan Love, at least for the moment, they were able to win a football game, you know, despite not really throwing it that much. You know, they ran the ball over 50 times. So, and the defense, you know, played better than, you know, last week against the Eagles, or now 2 weeks ago almost. But as for the Colts, yeah, that wasn't great. That was not great. You know, and I think this is kind of what we're going to see out of Anthony Richardson. You know, one game he's going to look great, like he did against the Texans, and then against the Packers, you know, looks pretty pedestrian, especially with the 3 interceptions. And, you know, he's lucky that he recovered those 2 fumbles. So, but he's going to get better as the year goes on. But you'd like to see them run the ball more with Jonathan Taylor, you know, maybe get Michael Pittman more involved in the offense. So, but we got to keep an eye on the status of DeForest Buckner because that's a big player on that defensive line. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts on the Packers. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Jordan Love will play on Sunday, or do you think that they should wait another week? I would probably lean towards that, but again, I would love to see Jordan Love, no pun intended, I would love to see him play this week. But you got to make sure he's, close to 100%. And I think another week would be better for them. So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the $ icon in the chat. This will help create a super chat for you. Any thoughts or comments you may have throughout the show that I will acknowledge during the live broadcast. And it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us. Also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will get into talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers and their win against the Denver Broncos, another low-scoring game. And I did bet the under in that game. Now, my parlay did not hit because the Ravens lost to the Raiders. But another low-scoring game. Steelers got the win. And it seems like Justin Fields is going to once again be the starting quarterback for the Steelers. So we'll get into all that when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we are now going to get into talking about the Steelers' 13-6 victory over the Denver Broncos, and it looks like Justin Fields is once again going to be the starter. So let's get into the game summary for that game. I mean, wasn't a lot of scoring, 13-6. Broncos had nope, that's the next segment. Spoiled you guys there. Well, I mean, you knew that was what the next segment was going to be, but that's, going to be one of the graphics that I use. But 13-6, not a lot of scoring. Broncos had an opportunity to score. They hit on a nice pass play by Bo Nix. They were set up. They were going to score a touchdown, or they were looking to score a touchdown, and then Bo Nix threw a red zone interception. So let's kind of go through it. So both teams exchanged punts to start off the game. The Steelers' second possession of the game, they went 12 plays, 78 yards, 7.5 minutes of time of possession down the field. Justin Fields connected with Darnell Washington, the number 2 tight end, and the Steelers went up 7-0, and that was the Steelers' first touchdown of the season, because if you remember last week, Chris Boswell kicked 6 field goals. Now, in the next segment, we will talk about a team that kicked 7 field goals and won. So, yeah, they went up 7-0. The Broncos punted again. Steelers punted in the second quarter. The Broncos turned it over on downs. They went for it on 4th and 7 from the Steelers' 39-yard line. And then the Steelers cashed in right before the half, and Chris Boswell kicked a 22-yard field goal to make it 10-0 Steelers. Then both teams exchanged punts in the third quarter, and this is what I was talking about. Actually, no. This was a direct snap to... never mind. It was a direct snap to Javonte Williams. Then it was kind of a trick play. Tossed it back to Bo Nix, and he tossed it downfield for 49 yards to Josh Reynolds. And that set them up in good field position. to cash in, score a touchdown. Bo Nix tried to hit Cortland Sutton, but he was intercepted, and the Broncos continued to be shut out in this game. Then the Steelers, they kicked a field goal on their drive after the interception. A 53-yard field goal by Chris Boswell. He has been off to a great start for the Steelers. Both teams exchanged punts once again. Broncos then put together a drive that led to a field goal, and this was a 35-yard field goal by Will Lutz that made it 13-3. Again, more punting in the game, a lot of punts in the game. And then the Broncos went 9 plays, 69 yards, almost 3 minutes of time of possession down the field. Will Lutz kicked a 29-yard field goal to make it 13-6. And then Bo Nix threw another pick. It was a Hail Mary intercepted by KZ, and that was the end of the game. Steelers win 13-6. Justin Fields went 13 of 20 for 117 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, was sacked a couple times. The Steelers ran the ball for 141 yards in total. Najee Harris had 69 yards on the ground. Jaylen Warren had 42. Fields had 27. Pat Freiermuth was the leading receiver, 39 yards receiving. George Pickens had 29 yards receiving. Warren had 19. Van Jefferson, 14. Fields did fumble in this game, but he was able to recover it. And the Steelers only had 2 sacks in this game. 1 sack for T.J. Watt, and the other was Alex Highsmith. And then as for the Broncos, Bo Nix went 20 of 35 for 46 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They didn't run the ball that well. 64 yards on the ground. Josh Reynolds was their leading receiver. He had 93 yards receiving. And then as for the Broncos defense, a couple of sacks in the game. One by Zach Allen, and the other one was by Jonah Ellis. Ellis. Yeah, Jordan Ellis. So, yeah, I mean, very low-scoring game. Or Jonah Ellis. I said Jordan Ellis. Jonah Ellis. But, yeah, very low-scoring game. And the Steelers, they are number 1 in the AFC North. 2-0. And we'll talk about them a little bit later. But you got the Browns who are 1-1, and you got the Ravens and the Bengals who are 0-2. And you didn't know what to expect so far. I mean, the Steelers, Russell Wilson was going to be the starter, and he hasn't played. And listen, if the Steelers win their home opener and you're 3-0, you're not going to pull the plug on this. But I think, at least, I'm getting the sense that it's kind of going to be a week-to-week thing. Like, as long as they're winning games, they're not going to make a change. But, if there's a game where Justin Fields is turning the ball over constantly and, things are not going well on offense, then they're going to make the switch to Russell Wilson, which originally was going to be the plan when Russell Wilson was the starter. If Russell Wilson wasn't playing well, they were going to go to Justin Fields. But Fields has done what he's supposed to do, hasn't put up great stats. He did hit 1 pass, which was really impressive. He rolled out, and he threw it down the sideline to George Pickens, and it was a great play. Pickens caught it, and I was like, wow, that was a great play by Fields. But, of course, it gets called back because there was a penalty. I forget what the penalty was, but that was a great play by Fields, and that ended up getting called back. So his stats would have looked a little bit better. Maybe the Steelers would have scored more points on that drive, but because they were, in field goal range, and then they ended up not doing anything on that drive. But Fields has made some good plays. I mean, I'd like to see him, at times, I want to see the rushing stats up, too, for him, because that's what makes him so dangerous. I don't think he's been bad throwing the football. Can he be better? Absolutely. But, right now, the Steelers are winning these low-scoring games. They're trying to, limit the mistakes. And, the Broncos had some opportunities that they missed on. I mean, they, had a great opportunity to score a touchdown, but Bo Nix ended up throwing an interception. So far, I think he has 4 interceptions so far this year, so he hasn't been great. But the Broncos also don't have a lot of talent around him. And, you figure once you maybe surround him with more talent that he'll be better. But, it's too soon to tell. This is just his second NFL game. But, look, what did I say before the season started? the Steelers are really going to have to stack up wins early on in the season because towards the second half of the year, that schedule is brutal. And how the season has gone so far, it might not be as brutal as we first looked at it because they do play the Eagles late in the year, and the way the Eagles have looked so far these first couple of games, I'm not really that impressed. They got the Chiefs, but they got them at home. The Ravens and the Bengals are both 0-2, and the Browns, I don't trust the Browns offensively. So, I don't think the Steelers, first of all, even if these teams were all playing well right now, and they had the records that I thought they would have as we go into week 3, even if they were playing really good football by the time we get to these games, I don't think the Steelers are going to lose out. The Steelers are going to find a way to win at least, a couple of these games later in the year. So, we got to see how it goes. But right now, it's important for them to stack up these wins, when your schedule is soft. They got the Giants, they got the Commanders, on the schedule. Listen, they got the Chargers at home. And look, the Chargers, they're 2-0, but I think the Steelers can win that game. I think that right now that game is a toss-up. But the Chargers, they have done a really good job at running the football. Justin Herbert hasn't been, putting up monster stats because he hasn't had to, because the running game has been great with J.K. Dobbins. Right now, he's the NFL's leading rusher. And the Chargers have been playing good defense. This is going to be the best opponent they've played so far, I would say. I mean, the Falcons, they looked like a disaster in week 1. Week 2, Kirk Cousins got better as the game went along. He's been getting great protection so far. Another quarterback that's had a clean pocket so far. But the Chargers are going to be a test because that running game could be a problem. And, TJ Watt is going to be lining up, against one of the tackles. And if it's Joe, it's going to be Joe Alt. And Joe Alt did very well against Max Crosby. That was a great pick for the Chargers. Because you got Joe Alt on one side and you got Rashawn Slater on another. And that's really, the running game has benefited from that. Because J.K. Dobbins has been running the football well. And Herbert hasn't been asked to do a ton. So this is going to be an interesting game coming up for the Steelers. Again, it's their home opener. It will be a tough game. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how Fields performs on the field on Sunday. But Steelers are 2-0. Right now they're in first place. So you got to give them credit. I said 9-8. 7 more games they need to win to get to that. But they're off to a good start, even though the offense hasn't looked great. But let me know what you guys think about this game. What were some of your takeaways from it? The Broncos, they will be going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or as I like to say, Tampa Bake. So they are gonna. That's gonna be a tough game for them, and they are gonna be looking at 0-3, in my opinion, because I think the Bucs will win that game. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game. I mean, like I said, I picked the under, and that hit with no problem. So yeah, we're gonna take our next break. When we come back, we will talk about the Giants and the Commanders. We will talk about this game. This is the last game recap that I'm going to be doing for the week. And, how fitting. We'll get into it. We'll talk about what happened. The Giants, they scored 3 touchdowns in this game, but they still ended up losing the football game. And we will get into all the specifics and, what happened in this game. Why did this happen? We'll get into all that when we come back. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we are going to get into talking about the Giants falling to 0-2 despite scoring 3 touchdowns in the game, losing to the Commanders, a team that they have owned for years now. They lose 21-18. Now, the reason for that, one of the main reasons for that, so I want to take you back to the opening kickoff. So I got the game on. I'm watching it in here. And Austin Eckler takes it to the house for a touchdown. And I was laughing. I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. This is just hilarious. And what ends up happening is that gets called back because I get a legal block in the back, I think, because there's always a flag on a kickoff or a punt. How many times do you see that? But, of course, there was a penalty, so the Giants caught a break, and there was no touchdown. Commanders ended up scoring no touchdowns in the game. But what ends up happening on the play is Graham Gano, their kicker, gets hurt. And he's out for the game. Out. Now, he was already, dealing with a little bit of a groin injury going into this game. He was hurt all week. But, the Giants didn't seem like it was that big of a concern. And they felt like he was going to be okay for this game and that nothing was going to happen. However, that was not the case. He was out for the rest of the game, and the Giants had no kicker. So what they ended up doing was they had their punter attempt an extra point, and he ended up missing it. And from that point on, the Giants just, when they would score a touchdown, the remaining 2 touchdowns, they did not attempt another extra point. They just kept lining up and going for 2, and they didn't convert ever. And ultimately, that led to a loss because the Commanders, they kicked 7 field goals. By the way, the Commanders had a new kicker in this game. So they picked up Austin Seibert, and he went 7 of 7. So if you had him in fantasy, you were very happy with his production. And looking at the statistics of the game, well, actually, before I get into that, so the Giants had the ball late in the game. The game was tied, and they were well in the field goal range. The problem was they don't have a kicker, so they went for it on 4th and 4, and Daniel Jones, threw a nice pass to Malik Neighbors on the sideline. He was wide open, and Malik Neighbors dropped the ball. Commanders, they took over. Jaden Daniels, second play of that drive, he connects with Noah Brown for 34 yards. They get into field goal range. They get to the Giants' 12, and Seibert kicks the game-winning field goal. Now, let's get into the statistics for the game. Daniel Jones went 16 to 28, 178 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Was better than he was last week, or in week 1 against the Vikings, but still not great. The Giants ran the ball for 129 yards. Devin Singletary had a nice game, 95 yards on the ground and a touchdown. He did fumble in the game. But Malik Neighbors, he was great in this game. He was one of the bright spots of this Giants loss. And the Giants look like they have a good player with him. And you saw this a little bit beforehand. But yeah, 10 receptions. He was targeted 18 times, 127 yards, and a touchdown. You would like to see some of the other guys getting the ball too. I mean, you can't just be relying on one guy on offense, which is kind of what the Giants were doing, in previous seasons with Saquon Barkley. Now Malik Neighbors picks up where Barkley left off. Well, the other thing too you could say is, well, Neighbors dropped the ball and Barkley dropped the ball on Monday, so that's nice. But yeah, Darius Slayton had 3 receptions for 33 yards. Wan'Dale Robinson had 2 receptions for 18 yards. Also had a touchdown. Neighbors also had a touchdown in this game as well. It says it right there. But the Giants as a team, though, they did get 5 sacks in the game. Jason Pinnock had 2. Micah McFadden had 1. Drew Phillips, their corner, had 1. And Bobby Okereke had 1 as well. But the Giants got absolutely destroyed in the ground game. The Commanders ran the ball for 215 yards. Brian Robinson Jr. had 133 yards rushing. Jane Daniels had 44. Austin Eckler had 38. The leading receiver was Zach Ertz with 62 yards. Yeah. The Giants' defense has been a disappointment to start off this year. And they got to figure it out. And, this season is quickly unraveling. For me, their season is pretty much over. I feel like they're going to win a game at some point, but they got a brutal stretch coming up. I mean, they got the Browns this week in Cleveland against a very good defense. They got the Cowboys who own them on Thursday night the following week, which is going to be a short week. Who else do they have? They're in Seattle, home against the Bengals, home against the Eagles, at the Steelers. And, when I used to do my radio show at school, my friend and I would do a goof segment. It wasn't really a segment, but we would just do it anyways because it was funny. Where are the wins coming from? That was what the segment was called. Now, a lot of people say that. It's not like, we created this brand new segment. It was kind of a spoof segment because, it was funny. And where are the wins coming from for the Giants? Now, believe it or not, I actually do think that they could beat the Browns. I think they could because the Browns' offense has still not been great. However, you could say, well, the Giants' offense has not been great. It looked a little bit better, but that's because of Malik Neighbors. And they were going up against a team that Daniel Jones does well against. They couldn't win that game. Now, what I don't understand is how the Giants didn't suit up another kicker. And I know there are people that have different opinions on it, but if you know that your guy is hurt, and Brian Dable was not having it when he was, taking questions on this topic. He was not having it. But you should have another kicker prepared just in case Graham Gano gets hurt. But they figured, we don't need to worry about it. Well, guess what? This costed the Giants the game. If they have a kicker, they're winning this game. But they didn't. And because of that, they are now 0-2. Now, could the offense have been better? Could Daniel Jones have had better stats? I mean, again, only passed for 158 yards. Not great. But he's not the reason they lost. And Malik Neighbors was really beating himself up over the drop. Not his fault either that they lost. You know what? If the Giants had a kicker, they would have kicked the field goal. And then, you know what? Yeah, the game probably would have been tied anyways because the Giants' defense can't stop anything. But you at least have a kicker. And you wouldn't have put Malik Neighbors in that situation to drop the pass. But you know what? This is kind of what happened in 2021. You lose an ugly game in week 1, and then you look like you're going to win a game in week 2 against the Commanders, because that's the last time. No, it's not. Well, that's the last time the Commanders beat the Giants in Washington. Because the Giants then played them the last game of the regular season in 2021, and that was when Jake Fromm started. Joe Judge did the back-to-back. QB sneaks on their own 4, which made no sense. But it was the same thing. The Commanders kicked the game-winning field goal, although it was a little bit different because the Commanders initially missed the field goal, and the Giants won, but Dexter Lawrence was offsides, and they got to kick again, and they ended up winning. This one, the Giants scored 3 touchdowns, and the Commanders scored 7 field goals, and they win. And it's funny how you always say you got to score 7. You don't want to be kicking field goals. Well, that's all the Commanders did. The Giants, all they did was score touchdowns, and all the Commanders did was kick field goals, and the Commanders won. And the Giants became the first team in NFL history to score 3+ touchdowns, allow no touchdowns, and lose. So it's amazing. They continue to find ways to lose games, just when you think you've seen it all. And look, when Daniel Jones loses to a team that he always beats, that's when you know, yeah, this season is really going nowhere. And, I mean, I guess I really drank the Hard Knocks Kool-Aid. Like, I was like, you know what? They're not going to be a total embarrassment this year. They're going to be a competitive team. They're going to lose some tough games. They're going to finish with a losing record. I mean, it's not like I had them making the playoffs. I still had them, with a losing record, but I gave them 7 wins. 7 wins right now looks impossible. And it's not like the Commanders look great. I think Jane Daniels, he looks like he's going to be a good player for them, but they don't look great. Their defense is bad. But the Giants still couldn't beat him. So, where is this season going to go? Now you're going up against a Browns team where, yes, they've struggled offensively, but you're going up against a good defense. And, the Giants' defense hasn't looked great. Giants' defense does not look great. They did get to the quarterback this game, but they still gave up a ton of yards. You look at the box score, the Commanders had 425 yards of total offense. Giants had 304. They had 69 plays to the Giants' 51. Yeah, it's not looking good. And, you already got people saying, Shane Bowen's defense, people are talking about, why did they get rid of Wink Martindale? That's another Brian Daboll question, It's been disappointing. Malik Neighbors has not been. Singletary's had a better game. I know he fumbled, but, at least he got it going a little bit. This is a must-win for the Giants on Sunday if they're going to want to try to, salvage this season. Because if you go to 0-3, I mean, then it's going to continue to spiral out of control. And you really think about Brian Daboll and his job security. Like, if this season goes really bad and off the rails, what's going to happen? So, because the Giants have a lot more issues than just the quarterback. And he wasn't the reason they lost. But yeah, that's basically it. The Commanders, they pick up a win, and they take on the Bengals on Monday night. One of the 2 games. So, yeah, they're 1-1. They're you got every team in the NFC East at 1-1 except for the Giants, who are 0-2. So, all right, we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about all the 2-0 teams. And, just talk about some surprises from the group. I'll give you some of my takes on those teams when we come back from our final break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to get into talking about all of the 2-0 teams, talk about some of the surprises from the group, things like that. So we'll start off with the NFC. And surprisingly, yeah, I mean, the group that is 2-0, it kind of is a surprise. Because, going into the year, I had the Lions, the 49ers, the Eagles. Those were like the top teams. Now, it's still going to most likely, finish that way. But, yeah, 2-0. You got the Vikings, you got the Saints, the Buccaneers, and the Seahawks. Those are your 2-0 teams. So who would have said that was going to happen? We'll start off with the Vikings. They got their first win against the Giants in Week 1, which not overly surprised by. But this past week, they really were impressive against the 49ers. This is a good roster. They're well coached. And, Sam Darnold, he's played well these first couple games. And they're only going to get better because once you get Jordan Addison back, you get TJ Hawkinson back. I mean, I've said this a million times. But you get those guys back, and you hope Justin Jefferson, is healthy. And he didn't seem overly concerned over his injury. Injured his quad in the game against the 49ers. But, you get all those guys back. I mean, this could be a wild card team. This could definitely be a wild card team. How the season has started off so far, I mean, I had the Rams making the playoffs. They look like they're not going anywhere this year. The way the team is just dealing with a ton of injuries at the moment. But I like what I'm seeing from the Vikings so far. And you got Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler running the football well for them early on. And they're backed by a good defense. So, yeah, I mean, I'm impressed with what they're doing. I'm kind of surprised that, I think that, you would have thought they'd be 1-1 playing against the 49ers, but the 49ers have not looked great so far. So, yeah, and then another surprise is the Saints, how they've started off. 40 points in back-to-back weeks. Now, against the Panthers, you're like, okay, the Panthers are not good. But, 44 points on the Cowboys in Jerry World, that was an eye-opener. And Derek Carr is playing really well to start off the year. Alvin Kamara looks like his old self. Rashid Shaheed has gotten off to a great start. So many big plays down the field with him. Yeah, it's and you got that defense that, they still got some veterans on that team. Cameron Jordan. You got to like what you're seeing from the Saints so far. They have carried over that momentum from last year. They have. Now, is it going to continue throughout the whole season? No. At some point, they are going to regress back to the mean. But right now, you got to like what you're seeing from them. And the Buccaneers, they're 2-0. Week 1 against the Commanders, I had them winning that game. But against the Lions, avenging that playoff loss, by going back to Detroit, that was definitely a little bit of an eye-opener. The Lions right now are not playing great offensively. Well, Jared Goff has not looked great the first 2 weeks. But, yeah, you got the Saints and the Buccaneers at the top of the division. Falcons 1-1. But got to like what the Bucs are doing. And they were able to win despite all the injuries that they were dealing with, particularly on defense. So, yeah, Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield right now, they are looking really good. Baker right now to start off the year, he's got 5 touchdowns to 1 interception. And Derek Carr, he has 5 touchdowns to 1 interception as well. So they both have been playing well, and we'll see if they can continue that. The Seahawks are 2-0. They're on top of the NFC West. They didn't look great in Week 1 against the Broncos, but looked a little bit better against the Patriots in Foxborough against a good defense. So, yeah, good start for Mike McDonald. Geno Smith has been okay. Again, was a little bit better this past week against the Pats. He's got a touchdown to interception ratio of 2-1. They were without Kenneth Walker on Sunday, so once they get him back, you'll have your full arsenal of weapons once again. And, the Seahawks have a good defense as well. So, yeah, I mean, I can't really say I'm surprised that the Seahawks are 2-0 based off of the schedule, but it's just kind of surprising just the teams that are 2-0 right now in the NFC. Because there's no 49ers, there's no Rams, no Cowboys, no Eagles, no Lions or Packers. It's the Vikings, Saints, Buccaneers, and Seahawks. Now, this is just what the segment is. It's just talking about the 2-0 teams. Things are going to change. When we look back at this again, several weeks from now, it's going to look very different. So then we go to the AFC. You got, now it's a little less surprising. You got the Bills at 2-0, the Chiefs are 2-0, the Chargers, the Texans, and the Steelers. Now, with the Chargers, based off of their schedule, yeah, I mean, I kind of would have expected them to be 2-0, I think. I mean, maybe they could have lost to the Raiders, but the Raiders did not look great in that game. But, yeah, I mean, credit to Jim Harbaugh. He's already doing wonders with that team. The Chargers' ground game has been very efficient so far this year, and that's, what Jim Harbaugh is all about, is running the football. And he's got probably the best quarterback that he has, been a head coach of in Justin Herbert. So, yeah, I mean, you got to like what they're doing so far. Actually, what is their rushing stats? So they are actually, so they're second in rushing yards per game. They are averaging 197.5 rushing yards per game. But yeah, J.K. Dobbins has looked really good. I mean, the Joe Alt pick, we talked about it. I mean, having him and Rashawn Slater as your two tackles, I mean, that's, you love that. And the Chargers defense hasn't looked bad so far. I mean, you went up against the Raiders and the Panthers. And now you're going up against Justin Fields and the Steelers, and their offense hasn't looked great. So, yeah, good for the Chargers. Also, the Steelers, speaking of them, they're off to a 2-0 start as well. Justin Fields continues to, manage the game. And that Steelers defense continues to play well. Chris Boswell has gotten off to a great start, their kicker. Right now, they're in first place. So, one of these 2-0 teams will not be 2-0. They will not be undefeated unless they tie. They will be playing on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to that game. And then the other teams that are 2-0, not really surprised, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Texans. The Bills have looked really good so far offensively and defensively. Before Tua got hurt, they forced him into 3 interceptions. So, and Josh Allen has looked good to start off the year. James Cook as well. This could finally be the James Cook year. We saw it a little bit towards the end of last season. Now that 3-touchdown game against the Dolphins, that's got to get Bills fans and fantasy owners very excited. The kind of game that he had. The Texans, they look really good. Interesting game coming up on Sunday in Minnesota. Texans will be going to take on the Vikings. So one of those two teams will not be undefeated by the end of that game. I have no idea who to pick in that game. I really don't. That game is a toss-up for me. Right now I'm leaning towards the Texans, but I don't feel great about it. I really don't, because the Vikings are playing really good. And then, of course, you got the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 2-0. Now, many people are going to say, well, they should be 1-1. Many people could say, well, they could be 0-2. Because, if Isaiah Likely, keeps his, if Isaiah Likely stays in bounds and they go for 2 and they get it, Chiefs lose that game. And if, that pass interference call doesn't happen, Chiefs lose that game and they're 0-2. But they're not. They're not. That's why it's if. They are 2-0, whether you like it or not. Have they looked great? First week, they looked good offensively. Then, this past week, Mahomes still, the interceptions, with him at times are a problem. Now, one of them, I can't really fault him because the defensive back of the Bengals made an unreal catch, an OBJ-like catch. So I can't really, fault Mahomes for that. But, now, with the Chiefs, we got to see what this running game is like, because Isaiah Pacheco is going to be out for a while. Carson Steele looks like he's going to get, the work as the number one back. And he impressed in the preseason. And you also got Samaje Perine there. You brought him in to be that third down back. We'll see if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is brought back in the fold at some point. Because he's on the non-football injury illness list. Because he's been dealing with, I believe, some off-the-field stuff. So hopefully, things are better on that front. So we'll see if he's eventually brought back in. They did bring in Kareem Hunt, the former Chiefs running back. That's kind of what the Chiefs' ground game is going to be. And Travis Kelce's gotten off to a slow start, but, I'm not really concerned about that. I think he's going to get it going. He's getting older, but, it's he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. But those are all the 2-0 teams. Let me know what you guys think, though. What is the most surprising 2-0 team of the group? I'd probably say it's the Saints, honestly. Just because how they've performed these first couple weeks. Back-to-back 40-point games. Maybe you could say the Vikings also, because they beat the 49ers. But you know what? The Vikings beat the 49ers last year, too. But, that's basically it with that topic, and that's basically it for the show for today. I thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Give the other shows some love. And, so with that is all the time that we have for today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be doing a lot of picks for the rest of the games for this week. We'll talk about college as well. Look at some of the big matchups there. So until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the game tonight, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.